JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. June 20th, 2024, almost the 3 o'clock hour. Talk really quick about the market, some of the trades I made, some of the names I'm looking at, and go from there. But the market actually is in the red right now. The S&P is down about 0.2%, reversing all-time highs at the open. The SPY went all the way up to 550.12 or so. I think that's what I have. And then all the way down to 545.18 at about the 1:30 hour and has bounced a little bit. So not to be unexpected. I talked about that upper Bollinger Band, 548 and change. Now it's at 550. So some consolidation. I think that bodes well for, well, at least for maybe 552, 553, and then probably start to revisit. It's not the irony, but all these posts in comparison to the 2000 bubble, to what's going on right now. It just as the market reverses, all of a sudden, the folks start pulling those headlines. So here we go, here we go. So it's funny how it all works. And then a year, 2, 3, 4 years from now, we'll be higher than where we are now. But that's the markets, right? So, upper Bollinger Band was 448. So if we 548, we turn around here maybe today and tomorrow, and then we can look at breaking into the 550s and holding that into next week. So nothing crazy in my opinion. And small caps. So take a look at the IWM down about 0.3%. Funny, you take a look at Market Watch, and it says are small caps headed for the long-awaited turnaround. That's the headline just out a little bit ago. So I hope so. And the 200-day moving average on the the 50 days 201.25. The 200 days 190.97. So a ways to go if we have a pullback, but hopefully today or tomorrow small caps can find their footing. It looked like today was going to be the day, but they reversed course, and I think that could provide some tailwinds for the markets. So that's kind of the markets. No catalyst tomorrow. There's no jobs report, no CPI, no PCE data. So it's going to be more about the headlines with NVDA. Is it big reversal, right? The big headline: NVIDIA lost $230 billion in a reversal today. But then you look and it's like the stock is flat for the week, right? They make it sound like it just had this huge decline and $230 billion. Let's see if I saw that headline. And it says NVIDIA under pressure. That's the big. If you go to MarketWatch, big tech stocks under pressure as NVIDIA slumps. NVIDIA's stock turns sharply lower with a $230 billion swing in market cap, but it's like this is a $3 trillion company and it's flat on a week, So it's like it makes you, it just tries to instill fear or at least give you reason to click the headline, where it's really, it's like a non-event, right? The stock is up so much already. For it to swing flat for the week, I think is actually a good thing, right? You want to see some consolidation. All right, so that's the headlines. Some of the names I traded. So Dell gave me an opportunity. So after its earnings, it dropped, and I've said this for a couple of weeks around this AI zero margin narrative that's been going on since its earnings call, which it's relevant, right? If you're an investor or an analyst, you model, especially as an analyst, you model your price targets and your ratings around EPS forward. Everything's forward, right? Forward looking stuff, and here it is where you start looking at the data and what they were guiding for and their current earnings, and you would say, wow, they're calling for zero margins on the AI server side, right? But anyway, so then this morning, Wall Street Journal comes out with an article kind of saying, hey, this is misguided, what have you. And then you have the Elon Musk saying that XAI is going to have 50% of their AI servers are going to be from Dell. So somehow, after its pullback from earnings, I got the 165s for June. Then it held its ground. I got the July 170s, and the 165 Junes came back to life. They came back to life the start of the week when Dell was up 10% over the last Monday and Tuesday. And then this morning when it gapped higher, I thought, okay, here's a great opportunity to lock in the strikes that expire tomorrow, right? Take that risk off and roll them into higher striked July calls. And that's what I did. So unfortunately, the timing, I guess I wouldn't say the timing's off. Obviously, be easier to add here at 147 instead of, in the mid 150s from this morning. But at least it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's riding free money, but the 165s were pretty much bidless last week. So uh, just use that to add some July 200s. I was actually looking to get out of some of my July 170s, but you know, in the back of my head, I thought if my nothing's really changed, right? I mean, Nvidia sold off, so it pulled down some of the other basket of names. And if I still think that Dell's going to hit all-time highs in the coming weeks, and July's still plenty of ways out there, just hold the calls. And I already locked some of the July 170s in on Tuesday, so I'll hold those. I'll hold the 200s, go from there. But the chart's still setting up pretty nice here. And if you look at the candles, and this is from a couple, you know, 15 minutes ago, I still think it's setting up pretty nice for a move, at least into the 165 plus. Maybe that happens tomorrow. HPQ, a little different story. Still holding the bull flag, but it's giving back some of the gains from Tuesday. Hopefully that kind of holds. And at some point, I keep saying I think 40 bucks comes on HPQ. AMD, there was some news, I guess, some security breach. I don't even think that's what's moving the stock. It's almost like AMD is the stepchild, right? I don't even know how to say it without, I don't want to offend anybody, right? So uh, AMD is kind of like the lost, forgotten stepchild, stepbrother, whatever you want to call it, and um, maybe rightfully so. But if it's not rightfully so, maybe it starts to come back to life. So I don't think I've traded AMD, just like I didn't trade Apple couple 2 weeks ago when it went on its monster run, but I always watch it. So finally seeing it run up today, I was looking up, said, wow, this might go into the 170s. You look at the chart, it broke back over its 150-day moving average. I got some calls. I was I was watching closely, and then once it looked like the buyers kind of faded, the stock was melting a little bit. I locked the calls in for flat, and at some point I'll revisit, because you look, and it's 220 back in March. I'm not saying that it goes back there, but if it even gets a hint of FOMO from folks who are looking for some sympathy names to trade, AMD is certainly a name I'll be looking for possible speculative calls in the coming weeks. So so hopefully you can understand, or you can, helps you, so you can understand my thought process in ending those calls and then closing them out. Because it'd be nice. Typically when I close the calls out for flat, the stock rockets another 2, 3, 4%. Sense a little bit of sarcasm here, but it's down here 161 and change. If it shows some strength tomorrow, I might look for some lotto calls again tomorrow. So that's AMD. Um, Lamb Research, and I say this a lot of times with always be hedging. I'm trying to find stocks and names that I think offer a nice risk reward on the put side. So when the markets are finding themselves under pressure, it used to be Broadcom, and Broadcom looked like a good play today, but the premiums are just too high for me on a risk reward basis. Where you look at LRCX, and I think it offers a better risk reward for a put hedge. So I went and got put hedges. I apologize. I was looking to put this. I didn't realize I didn't put the strike in, but I put it in. If you look at the price that I got my weekly puts in, and you look at the strikes on the weekly strikes, you can probably figure out what strike it was. And if you can get a higher strike at the price I got, then you're probably in better shape anyway. But I got the 1,000 puts, and there were, here it is at 1050. So obviously you need a large move. But if we have a small move to the downside and it gaps down 2-3% tomorrow at the open, those puts are gonna be 4, 5, 600% to the upside. And then I covered my hedge. That my hedge, will allow me to either add more calls or offset some losses. So um, that's this week. I'm sure I'll find a different hedge next week or the week after. But we'll see how that all plays out. All the way down to 1050, bounce back up to 1060. Again, all it's going to take is a little pullback in NVIDIA at the open tomorrow, or the whole basket of names as a whole. And I think a Lamb Research offers a nice hedge for downside. So that's that. Gilead, GILD. I haven't traded this one in a while. It's one of the least, I wouldn't say least, but it's not a sexy name in the biospace, right? It's been chopping around in a tight range. It did well back in COVID. But it's sitting here, I think it was 60. Yeah, it's 62 bucks back at the start of June or at the end of May. And this is a stock that was 84 bucks earlier this year. It really hasn't done much. And then it has this HIV data, phase 3 data, where it shows that you do preventative, I think it's 2 shots preventative measure, and it's 100% protection against HIV. And, HIV is kind of like a 1980s, 1990s story. So it's not as prevalent, but it still bodes well. And you can see the stock reaction today. I think it just maybe puts more eyes back on Gilead. I added some July strikes. I think this is kind of like a spark. Not that just the data is what it needed, but I think as a whole, it's it's tons of cash. Maybe it does some pocket acquisitions. I think someone was saying there was one of the analysts was saying there's some data that points to another drug they might have for weight loss. So I think that all kind of you wrap it together, and I think that's it's a recipe for more upside. So it broke over the 50-day moving average. If you look, the last time it was over its 50-day moving average was in January, and that was when it was in the 70s. So here it is, actually 5 months later, finally back over its 50-day moving average. The 200 days at 72.42. So that's probably the next target. So that's kind of the thought process behind adding those Gilead calls. And that's, what are they now? They were up much higher when the stock was in the 69s. I was looking to close some out to cover costs, but I'll just hold them for now because I think it's headed substantially higher. Wow, did the premiums go up on those? Hang on a second, folks. Yeah, so yeah, they're a double. So the premiums went up substantially. All right, so maybe I'll lock some of those in before the close. All right, so that's Gilead. Those are 32 cents at 68 by 75. CHEWY. So, I talked about it on the rant on Tuesday afternoon and then this morning, and then sure enough, some analysts came out uh, with a note on CHEWY after the open, after I kind of like talked about this. But if you look, GameStop did that huge offering. And, any smart company, when you're a publicly traded company, everybody, like scoffs at companies that raise capital, but like that's why you're a publicly traded company, right? The reason you deal with shareholders and invest all that fun stuff is because uh, you have access to capital, and that capital allows you to execute your business plans at a higher pace, capacity, scale, whatever you want to call it. And so when GameStop does that, they're not looking at we're ruining the big pump from Roaring Kitty or from the Reddit community or the whatever you want to call it. They're saying, hey, we have an opportunity to raise more capital to execute our business plan. So that's the GameStop side. But on their investor day, which was only 23 minutes long, which is kind of comical, but you have Cohen, who's founded CHEWY and brought that to where it is now, great success. He talked about doing some possible acquisitions, and they just raised $3 billion. Are they going to get a stake in CHEWY? So I think that's some of the move you see. And then talked about this morning the 13% short interest, the fact that the stock is up from $16 in a very short period of time puts pressure on the shorts. So of course, I added in the 26s. I'm not sure if I'll add any more just yet today, but I'll continue to look for that for opportunities to play CHEWY because I think it heads over $30 in the coming weeks. And it's a great story without all that the possibilities of Cohen or a GameStop stake or the short interest, right? I think it's a great story that goes over 30 without all that news. So I think that just adds more fuel to the fire. So that's CHEWY. And then last but not least here, and I wouldn't say last but not least, is Spotify. It was running after the open. I had it on the watch list this morning, and Spotify has a tendency to run end of week, especially Fridays. So I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to add some strikes. Got them pretty much right after the open. It goes up to 317 and change, and now it's been chopping around here. I think it heads into the 320s tomorrow. And it's my famous last words. Typically, when I say that, I'm not in a position and it runs up to it, runs and goes. And Spotify's done that before, but I think it trades higher into the close tomorrow. So I'll just hold my speculative calls and go from there. And I'm trying to think of some of the other names I'm looking at. That's about it for now. Yeah, I mean Dell's down here at 147, but if you had told me Dell was going to be 147 on Sunday, I would say, oh, that's good news. I mean, it's still up. Dell's up 9.6% this week, right? So, if you tell me Dell's going to go up 10% every week for the next 4 weeks, I'd be happy, right? So, it's almost better that a name like Dell doesn't go up 25-30% in a week because the downside is going to be more abrupt, more volatile. So, anyway, I think that's it, folks. Thanks for listening. I'll be back on the audio tomorrow. Let's have a great afternoon. Rock and roll.